All right, it's go time. Before the lesson really begins, I've got to refresh your memory on how to simplify radicals, because this lesson is really about solving quadratics by square roots. But in order to take a square root, you got to know how to work with them. So let's start. First thing, know your perfect squares. Square root of 25 is 5. But then, one of the things that you probably remember but need to be refreshed is how to simplify radicals like the square root of 8. In this chapter, you are not allowed to use decimals unless stated. So, some of you probably learned the factor tree, where you list what goes into 8, and that would be 4 and 2. And then you can break down 4 to 2 and 2. And then when you're done, you circle any pairs. They must be the exact same number. And anything that does not have a pair gets boxed. So this 2 is all by himself. Anything circled comes outside. Anything boxed stays in the box. And the square root of 8 is 2 root 2. So that should have kind of refreshed your memory a little bit. We're going to save those two, square root of 18 and the square root of 96 for you. Go do them. And did you get the same thing? This one you broke down to 9 and 2, 3 and 3. Circle your 3s, box the 2, so you have 3 root 2. 96, by the time you get done, you have 2 pair of 2s that you circled. You've got a 3 and a 2 left, but they are not allowed to be friends, so you have to box each one of them. So 2 2s come outside, a 3 and a 2 stay inside, and you have 4 root 6 after you combine. So now we'll move over to multiplying. When you multiply, the thing is you are only allowed to multiply the outsides with outsides and insides with insides. So 2 times 3 is 6, and the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 6. Now, if this inside can be simplified, you must do that, but this can't, so you leave it as 6 root 6. This guy, try again. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 6 is 30. The square root of 30 cannot be simplified, so you leave it alone. You get to try the last one, and it should be able to be simplified. Go give it a try. Did you get 60 root 3? You multiply the outsides, you get 15. Insides, you get the square root of 48. Simplify the square root of 48 to 16 and 3, 4 and 4. You don't have to continue breaking these down to 2 and 2. Once you see a pair of numbers, you can just circle them. So you have 4 root 3 for the square root of 48, but you can't forget there was a 15 already outside. So you need to put them back outside, so 15 times 4 is 60 root 3. Okay, and the last topic for radicals is division. So one of the things I will tell you, the square root of 4 over 9 is the exact same thing as the square root of 4 over the square root of 9. I actually like it better this way, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. So this one's easy. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. You're done, 2/3. Square root of 3 cannot be simplified, so you leave it as the square root of 3. But the square root of 4 is 2. You're done. This one, insides with insides. 2 over 8 can be reduced. So this is the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. And the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. So that one's done. It's just like multiplying. You are allowed to reduce or divide insides with insides and outsides with outsides. Okay, so 2 over 8 reduces to 1/4, which is 1/2. But now we get to some of the fun ones. You are not allowed to have radicals in the denominator. That's the rule you should remember. So, to get rid of them, if you remember, you just multiply the top and bottom by that square root in the denominator. So we have 2 times root 3, which is 2 root 3, over root 3 times root 3 is root 9, but we know the square root of 9 is 3, so we have 2 root 3 over 3. So it's okay if you just do the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 and then just write 3. That's okay. So this guy, you would do the square root of 2. Root 3 times root 2 is root 6. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. You cannot simplify that, so don't even try, because this root 6 is, or the 6 is inside the square root and the 2 is not. So you get to try the last 2 practice problems. Go do it. Alrighty, so this one you had to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 6. And you get 2 root 30 over 6, but the 2 over 6 can be reduced to 1/3, so you just get the square root of 30 over 3. This one, multiply the top and bottom by root 3, so you get root 24 over 3. But then, side note, the square root of 24 can be simplified to 2 root 6, so this is 2 root 6 over 3. Just so you know, in this chapter and for the rest of the year, whenever it comes to radicals, you need to be simplifying them completely all the way down. Okay? So that's it for that. So the reason why we played with this is because we are actually going to solve by square roots. So before we get started, you need to remember one special rule. When you are solving for x, always remember plus or minus. Whenever you are solving for x, you have to remember plus or minus, okay? So we'll take you through the first one. To get rid of an x squared, you have to square root both sides. It's kind of like 2x is equal to 144, so you got to divide both sides by 2 because that's the opposite of multiplication. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So you square root both sides and you get x is equal to plus or minus 12. And the reason why is because 12 squared is 144, and so is a negative 12. So negative 12 squared is still going to be a positive 144. Here's an example of why we started with simplifying radicals, because we have x squared is equal to 72, square root both sides, and you get x is equal to plus or minus 6 root 2. You actually have to simplify the square root of 72. We do not give decimals in this chapter unless stated. Okay? When you have something in front, it's no big deal. You just divide both sides by 2. And you get the x by itself. So you have x squared is equal to 81. And now you square root both sides and you get x is equal to plus or minus 9. Okay? So that's how you do solving by square roots. So I would like you to try the next two examples. These two right here. Save the last one in this row for me unless you want to give it a try on your own. Go for it. Okay, so for this guy, you had to subtract 6 from both sides first. You get 36. And then all you have to do is take the square root of both sides. You get x is equal to plus or minus 6. This guy, you had to add 5 to both sides first. Then you had to divide both sides by 2. It's just like solving for x, except for you're just solving for x squared. Square root both sides. 10 cannot be simplified, so you just leave it as x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. So this one I said leave for me. When you have a group that is squared, what you want to do is you want to get the set of parentheses by itself. So you can still just divide both sides by 2 right now. You do not distribute the 2. So that's going to leave us with x plus 5 squared is equal to 16. So from here, you square root both sides. And that's going to leave you with x plus 5. You got rid of the squared over here, equal to plus or minus 4. So you subtract 5 from both sides, and you have x is equal to a negative 5 plus or minus 4. And now you just have to make sure you add and subtract 4 from a negative 5. So this would turn into a negative 5 plus 4 and a negative 5 minus 4. We just split up the plus or minus. So x is equal to a negative 1 and a negative 9. And that's it. So, a couple more. We have 3 left in these notes. So why don't you go right ahead and try the first one and see if you get the right answer. So this one's just a little bit different. So the first thing you probably did was divide both sides by 2. And you ended up getting x minus 2 squared is equal to 8. Then you square rooted both sides. And you got x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 2 root 2. Remember, you must simplify the 8. Don't forget the plus or minus. And this just might be the spot you really didn't know what to do from here. And all you have to do is add 2 to both sides and keep the 2 in front. Your final answer is x equals 2 plus or minus 2 root 2. And yes, you leave it like that. Get used to it. Your answers are going to be ugly from time to time. So you just leave it alone. That's it. You're done. So this guy over here, you subtract your 4 from both sides. You end up with 3 times x minus 2 squared is equal to 21. Divide both sides by 3. You get your x minus 2 squared is equal to 7. Square root both sides. And you get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. Add 2 to both sides, and your final answer is x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 7, and you just leave it alone. Last one, divide both sides by 4, and that's going to give you 2x plus 3 squared is equal to 4. Square root both sides, and you get 2x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 2. And this is where I wanted you to see this fun little example. Why don't you see if you can figure out what the final answer is from here? What are you going to do to solve for x? Give it a quick try. And first thing you did was subtract 3, I hope. So you have 2x is equal to a negative 3 plus or minus 2. So now that's going to be a negative 3 plus 2, which is a 2x is equal to a your negative 1, leaving you with x equals negative 1/2. But you also have 2x is equal to negative 3 minus 2, which is a negative 5. Divide both sides by 2, and you get x equals negative 5/2. Remember, plus or minus an integer to another integer, you must do both. So negative 3 plus 2 is a negative 1, and negative 3 minus 2 is a negative 5. And you divide both by 2, you get your final answers. Alright, so that's it. That's solving by square roots. One quick little note before the end of this video. If you ever have anything that looks like this, x squared is equal to a negative 9, for now you're just going to say no solution. Why? Because do you know how to take the square root of a negative number yet? Nope, don't think so. So, for now, you can't take the square root of a negative, so you just say no solution. This is Longo, and I'm out. See you, bye.